I made a bunch of note cards on so in 1965, in Vietnam, the country was 90% Buddhist, 10% Catholic. The Catholics were the ones in charge. There was a ceremony called the Fat Dan, which took place at, not 1965, excuse me, 1963. And it was a Buddhist celebration, so everyone's out in the streets having a good time, and the president didn't like this, so he ordered his troops to open fire on the crowd, killing 9 people. This particular Buddhist monk was like, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to say. So in 1965, he marched to the middle of town square with a bunch of his monks, sat in a meditative pose. They dumped gasoline on him and he lit himself on fire because he wanted the rest of the world to know what was going on in Vietnam. It worked. 1965, the United States entered the Vietnam War, screwed up that country like it screws up every other country it randomly invades when they're pushing their own military agenda. Sorry. Which leads me to, what does this have to do with student equity? They asked me to do this talk on student equity. I wrote a few articles for EdSurge, and I was like, what's student equity? I was really confused, and then it's like, equality. Everyone's supposed to be served with, I'm like, you mean stuff that's already supposed to exist? I'm like, I was confused, because I'm like, to me, equity is a Buddhist concept, right? It's supposed to already be there. So, this is the way I figure how I relate to this guy. Right here today is the moment I light myself on fire to get people to listen to me about equity and the importance of sprawling, systemic, and necessary change. Yeah. So, let me just go to my first story about student equity. Like I said, I had a bunch of notes. I don't think I can follow them. When I first became a teacher, I was a special ed teacher in a co-taught classroom. And in Metro Atlanta, that pretty much means when you look like me, you're someone's babysitter. And an effective one. Say, hey man, ex-cop, he's really intimidating. He gets along with the kids and he connects because he's brown. Let's have him babysit. And then there's this one English teacher, right? She was that one English teacher who's brand new, couldn't control her kids. It's like a zoo every single day. Everyone's screaming, everyone's running out of the room. Everyone hates her. She hates herself, she hates the kids, she hates me, she hates the boss. And I'm like, Farhad, that's where you're gonna go. I'm like, okay. And it's like, racist at all. So I went in there, and all the kids, it was a 10th grade lit class. Most of the kids in there already failed at once. This lady was like, oh, Farhad's here. And there's one student in this class. I don't remember his name, so I'm just going to call him Daquan. Sorry. Daquan was a little different than most kids. There was something off about him. I don't know what. There was nothing in his IEP. He had an IEP, but it was just for a learning disability, reading deficiency, nothing else. But there's something just, he couldn't communicate. He came to school with like dirty, streaked-faced all the time, wearing the same clothes. It just wasn't like everyone else. So a lot of the other kids would pick on him, and one day, this one particular kid just kept picking and picking and picking and picking and picking, and then Daquan totally lost his shit. Like, completely. Started swinging wildly, picked up a desk, threw it into the wall, like tried to attack the kid, and I'm like, yeah, sorry, I swear a lot. I mean, if you can't handle the word fuck, that's another problem entirely, and we can talk about that at the tables or whatever, but it's 2018. It's like, he said fuck to me. Okay, good for you. I get that a lot, like daily. Move on. Anyway, so I was like, went back there, grabbed Daquan, and you're supposed to do this whole, like, you know, the little sweep and with the thing, and I didn't do that. I mean, I was a cop for 8 years. I was a bouncer. I was a professional fighter. I went with what I knew, and I, like, grabbed him, and we went to the ground, but I was whispering in his ear the whole time. I'm like, Daquan, I'm your friend. I'm like, I like you. We can't do this right now. This isn't good. And then everyone in the room was frozen. And I'm like, what the? And there's a panic button in the room, right? So I'm like, ring the panic button. Ring the panic button, please. Ring the fucking panic button, please. And so she rang the panic button finally, and then I sort of picked them up, but there's like a bunch of desks in the way, and the same thing happened again. Move the desks, please. Move it. Then I started yelling, and the one kid in the class who hated me because he was like, this is third time in the class, hated everyone, hated me. I was really hard on him. He started throwing desks out of the way. He's like, I got you, man. And this becomes a thing later, but so I get out in the hallway with Daquan. He's still struggling and still trying to go back in and kill the other kid. So we're laying on the floor, and I'm whispering, I'm like, Daquan, I'm your friend. Like, I don't want to do this. I was trying to, like, even though we're in the middle of something really violent, that's not what I was trying to say to him. And the administrator comes there with a cop. And I hated this little cop because he did nothing. And, you know, I was a cop, and we have a nothing cop, and you were a real cop. You kind of have a grudge. And this guy was a little bitch. And he came there and literally walked away. He's like, Farhad has it. I'm like, and then the administrator who came was like, Farhad has it. And she walked away. I'm like, what? So I took the kid to the special ed office, and we sat there and we talked and we called mom. And this is where it gets really messed up, because on his ride home, he jumped out of the car on the freeway and tried to kill himself. Because he's 17 years old and he has 3 credits, and he spent his entire life being underserved because no one gave a shit. And I'm like, you know, the story continues a little bit. He lived in the same housing complex a friend of mine lived in, and my friend saw him. He missed the bus for school, so my friend took him to school and was like, oh yeah, I go to this school. Oh, my friend works there. Oh yeah, he's a good guy. I know him. And I told my friend, I'm like, a week ago he tried to kill himself, dude. And my friend was like, what? This story doesn't end well, because he just disappeared into the cracks. I never knew what happened to him. He came back to school for like 3 days, medicated out of his mind on whatever they gave him, and then I never saw him again. I have no idea what happened to him. But that was normal for like the first 8 years of my education career. A new principal was hired at the school I was working at. He's the guy who's the superintendent of the place I work for now. And he was different. He said, you know, we're going to try and, like, not crap on special ed kids. And, all right, I hear you're a decent guy, so why don't we try to give you some more support? And I was like, great. You know, that's where it started. Time went on. He moved on. I moved on. I moved to an alternative education school. I wasn't a general ed, special ed teacher anymore. I became a general ed English teacher. So, you know, I actually went to school and got a degree in 1997, but no one cared to ask. And so I'm at this alternative school in South Georgia, College Park, the second most violent suburb according to FBI crime statistics in the country after Flint, Michigan. 1 in 7 citizens have been victims of a violent crime. And I just remember sitting there in that school, and they're like, Farhad, you know, you can handle yourself, so we want you to teach all the English classes at the same time. I'm like, okay. You can use this program, Ingenuity. If there's any Ingenuity people in here, you should be ashamed of yourself because that program is garbage. Sorry. It's like outdated, culturally biased, irrelevant. And I'm like, I'm in a room full of black and Mexican kids, and none of them give a shit about whatever the hell book. Like, what is that? The story they have every ninth lit kid read, The Most Dangerous Game? No one cares about this story. No one. I don't care. They don't care. No one cares. Except when they made that one movie with Ice-T sort of about it, but that's not this. And so, I didn't know what personalized learning was. I didn't know any of the buzzwords. I just knew that things weren't working anywhere I went. So I did what any normal person would do in my situation. I started stealing stuff. We had a SIG grant, and there was a room full of stuff. Like iPads and shit, and carts, and I just went in there and took an iPad cart. Hey, Farah, what are you? Nothing. They're just taking this. What are you going to do with it? I'm not quite sure. Okay, just check it back in and stuff. I'm like, okay. So I taught myself my mass device management, whatever. Had to steal a laptop too. Because the thing is, no one would bring book bags and pencils and paper with them. And this is why it's like, oh, you're an ed tech person. I'm like, no, I'm not. Really? Like, ed tech happened because no one I knew had a pencil. And I was losing my mind trying to keep track of their work. So I'm like, the cloud. Holy shit. And so, Google Classroom is where I got my start. Thanks, Google. No, like real talk, thanks, Google. You have no idea. And but the curriculum was still garbage. So I was on, people started realizing, hey, Farhad has other talents besides looking menacing and pretending like he's Tom Hardy from The Dark Knight Rises. So let's have him, because on the sly, I would do all this curriculum training, this Common Core standards. I got my graduate degree, and I was writing curriculum all the time. So I was on this district team that was doing the mastery by standard for each standard for using Marzano's grading scale, which is like 0 to 4. I do 1 to 5 because the math is easier. Sorry, dude, Marzano, wherever you are. Love your stuff, but it's 0 to 4. It's just hard to do in your head. Anyway, the humanities lady was sitting right there at the head of ELA for the district, and I'm like, we're talking about books and curriculum, and she was talking, I was like, my biggest pet peeve is The Great Gatsby. I hate that book. You know, because when you teach like African American kids your entire life, I'm like, no one gives a crap about what rich white people do. I don't, they don't, no one does. This is a waste of time. I'm not seeing that, because every every English teacher, you know, it's a typical it's Hillary Swank, you know, it's freedom writers, and that's all of them. And they're like, oh, but then we get to see Gatsby, and we get to see the movie, and we get to play it. Like, but that's you. You want that. And I'm really freaking glad you want that, but no one else in this entire building wants it. Because there's like a literacy problem, learning gaps. Like, do you not pay attention in those meetings? Or it's like, hey, we teach AP, so screw the rest of you. I'm like, well, that's another problem. That's pretty white last time I checked, but that's another conversation for another time. So I asked this lady point blank, is there anyone saying I have to teach The Great Gatsby in American Lit? And she's like, nope. I'm like, do I have to teach Shakespeare? She's like, nope. I'm I'm like, swear. She's like, yep. I'm like, sure. She's like, yep. I'm like, so if I'm teaching something else and someone's like, why aren't you teaching Gatsby? I can say, hey, she said. And she's like, well, I'd rather you not do that. I'm like, it's okay. I'm like, honestly, I don't care anymore. So we did Blues for Mr. Charlie. So I'm like, James Baldwin, moderately relevant, you think, to the situation I'm in? And the kids, believe it or not, like, I've never read stuff by African-American writers before. I'm like, well, that's a freaking problem, isn't it? You know? So, like, the whole... That's where it started. And I just rewrote everything because I would Google search. I went to Khan Academy. Curriculum for ELA, for at-risk student, nothing. There's nothing anywhere. So I'm like... So I started writing. I wrote everything. I would just grab books, write units based off the books. I would, like, the rhetorical triangle, right? Was supposed to be a big thing in 11th, but no one freaking taught that anywhere. Everyone is still like, logos, ethos, and pathos in 11th grade lit. I'm like, what are you people, like, this is why we're dumb. Like, but Wikis of Hunger Games, it's written at a 5th grade reading level, people. 5th grade, this is high school. No one gives a crap about Katniss, okay? But besides, that's the Battle Royale in Japan like 20 years ago, and it's a total ripoff, and you can't even, just don't. Anyway, that's another, anyway. So I rewrote this curriculum, and I got an award from the governor's office. Because they're like, sure, you wrote the entire curriculum. How did you do that? I'm like, I don't freaking know. I just remember I spent one entire spring break just in front of the computer. And I was like, don't get me wrong, I was cranky as hell about it. What did you do over spring break? Nothing. And then all of a sudden I was like super famous and everyone wanted to be my best friend. Like PBS came and did a segment at the school about me, and this lady who gave me needs improvement on all my evaluation thingies came up to me, big hug. Laura, we're so proud of you. We're so glad to have you on staff. Everything you do is amazing. And then she walked away, and I said to the teacher, she hates me. She hates me, she hates my students, she hates everything. And then, you know, I won an award again. And I won another award from this little paper, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I used to be super humble about it, but now I'm kind of a jerk about it because everyone, like, there's only so long you can be treated like a gorilla. When you're like, hey, oh, Teacher of the Year, popularity contest. Good for you, buddy. No offense to Teachers of the Year. I'm sure you're very popular. Anyway, then all of a sudden it became individualized learning because nothing was working, and it got to the point where if a kid was so difficult about reading something, I would make a curriculum on the fly based on whatever book they showed interest in. You know, I started using graphic novels. I remember distinctly someone from the DOE was like, and he teaches graphic novels, I think he's teaching down. But, you know, the Hunger Games is okay, but the Watchmen isn't. I'm like, and then the next year, and he's teaching graphic novels, we're so happy for him. It's really good for at-risk kids. I'm like, yeah. That's great, lady. I hate you. So this led to my next job, which is what I do now. I run my own program for the City of Marietta School District. I never planned on being a boss. I don't have leadership certification. It's not my thing. I didn't want it. But my superintendent Grant friend is like, Farhad, I know you swear a lot. And you refuse to wear ties and stuff. But we want you to do them. Okay, I'm in. And he's like, but you have to do you when you do this. Because the thing is, when you're like me, I have no ambition, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I have no ambition to the bureaucratic rat race. Like, my only ambition is to do right by my students who've been crapped on their entire lives. And when you're in that position, it's like you're kind of invulnerable because you just don't care. And I didn't care. Like, I stole crap constantly. I would steal crap for the severe and profound students just because I could. Hey, we don't have glue sticks. It's okay. I got this. Anyway, so brand new school just started in July. What are you going to do? I'm like, well, the whole thing I was doing with English, we're just going to do with everything. Like all subjects, which was kind of hard because I only had a social studies teacher and myself, so we don't have the math and science part down yet, but I'm working on it. Google Classroom, again, thank you, Google. Thank you. Because I can put my own content out and deliver it and whatever, and it's like, you know, at first the kids are kind of like, so it's just some like phantom grading it again. Like, no, dude, I am grading it. Like, that's the thing. This is together. It's like the thing I say to my students when I get to, when we start all the time. I'm like, look, man, you fail, I fail. Like, in the classroom, right? I don't have a desk. We just have tables and we all sit together. And I'm like, this is together. This is us, you know. We do what we do. And social emotional, right? I should probably pick it up here a little. So that was one of the big things I wanted to implement, because like going back to Daquan, I'm like, shit, that could have been maybe prevented. I don't know. So that's a big thing we do at this new school. I don't have a pissing contest with counseling people. If they want to come in, they come in. I'm like, hey, I will make the time for you, dude. And we have group counseling on Tuesday and Thursday, and individual counseling hopefully to start sooner rather than later. Because that social, it's one thing to say whole child, blah, 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 and make it a buzzword, but it's another thing to put it into practice. And putting it into practice, you have to, like, my number one rule in life, don't be a dick, right? And social emotional learning, implement in your classroom, that's what you have to do, is to not be a dick. Because so many teachers are like, what I do is so important, I need every minute of every day to teach, okay? You can't take any of my time away. No snow days, no nothing. No one's that important. Really, you're not that important. Like, so you want some kid to jump out of their freaking mom's car on the freeway, you're that freaking important? No, you're not. You know, no one cares. How much time do I have left? Oh, shit, okay. I'm gonna try my last. So, my last card, what's your point, man? That's what I labeled it. Everything isn't as it should be. Like, all right, you have a solution. I do, but you know what it's like implementing it? Like, there was no support at the beginning. Everything was a mess. I had no idea how to use Google Classroom. I was shooting at the hip. You know, there was no instruction, there was no PD. Like, everything was like test, fail, test, fail. Same thing with standard mastery-based assessment. It took me a minute to figure out how to do the gradebook because no program we had was ready for standards-based assessment. So it's an uphill battle. And here's the thing, if I had to leave one parting thought, no one's coming to make things fair. No boss is gonna sit there and say, hey, here's your magic solution. No one's gonna all of a sudden say, here's $75,000 a year, we're gonna make it so we can pay you what you're actually worth and you can perform. But no, that's not going to happen anytime soon. If you wanna do this, if you wanna implement student equity, you gotta do it on your own honor. Like, you have to say to yourself, you have to draw a line and say, whatever you have to do, I don't care. You have to say, you know what? If I keep ignoring the problem, it's gonna be another kid who goes out on the street, gets into it with a cop and gets shot and killed. It's going to be another kid who commits suicide. It's going to be another kid who feels alone. It's like, you know, student equity should just exist. And I guess, final thought, no one's going to make it exist for you. You're going to have to take it on yourself and probably piss off a lot of people to make it actually happen. That's it. That's all I got.